Hey, we're live. It's Karanda with Carvel Digital, and I am back with another amazing client. I was going to say one of my favorites, but you're all my favorites.
We like the
uh,
favoritism.
yeah. But I'm here with Leena Bakshi from STEM4Real, and I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about your amazing work before we dive in.
Yes. Well, my name is Leena Bakshi. I am the founder of STEM4Real, and what we do is we provide teacher training and professional learning primarily to schools and districts, some nonprofit organizations, looking at how we can look at the school to STEM career pipeline and see how we can drive in more equity and more bring in more social justice into our work. So that means how do we get in more representation, and we look at the root causes. So we look at schools, we look at teachers, and we see how we can get excited about science, about STEM, and doing this work so that Karanda has more friends in the field.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I was not sorry to leave tech. I mean, I know I technically still do tech things, but yeah, working in the industry, like in a company was not going to work for me long term for sure. So I'm so happy about your work and so happy to support your work. So let's start at the beginning and tell folks kind of how you became aware of Carvel Digital and what your thought process was. And I want to preface this by saying we've been doing a lot of like content boot camp interviews with content bootcamp clients. So this one's a little different because you went straight into insourced, which comes with all the rights and privileges of content bootcamp. So you still get coaching calls, support, all that good stuff. But so just talk about that beginning and like how did you find out about us and what was your thought process, in terms of saying like, oh, I might need to go talk to her.
Yeah, I mean, every time I think about Content Bootcamp, I'm like, where was this when I first started? And, the running joke was I was the person that hired everyone. I'm like, hi, I'm drowning. Let me hire you. Yeah. Like, everyone just had this beautiful, shiny object that said that they were going to solve my problem. And I believed it. I said, okay, great. I am a new mom. I have a newborn. I'm losing my mind. And there's a global pandemic. I could definitely use some help. And so my initial thoughts were, really, Karanda, where have you been? Like, why has
I'm
it
out
taken
here.
me this long to find you? Drag me sooner, please.
I'm doing my best. Oh man. Yeah, so you came in and you were just like, what do we have to do? Let's get going. And what was going on in your business and kind of where were you at when we started working together?
So I am this extrovert trapped in the digital world, and I had a really hard time with adjusting to going virtual and being online, being a person online, like you say. And so when online, in real life, I'd meet people, I'd network, I'd do my thing, we'd get a contract, and it was great. I had that personal connection with people. And then online, I just was like, how do people know what I do? There are no networking events. It's a lockdown. How do we really thrive in this new normal, right? So
Mhm.
that was the huge problem, is that I wanted to do all these fancy launches and everything, but I needed to go back to the basics to figure out where do I start.
Yeah. So then you came on and I think we had to do just some kind of triage of your initial systems, if I remember correctly. Right. So we did a little bit of website cleanup. We did a lot of work on just like your messaging, upgrading your email marketing. Um, and what was that process like from your side? Because we come at it, we're like doing all the tech things and we're like, okay, we need this content, we need that. Like, what is the experience like from your side?
I'm not gonna lie. It was really hard to just take everything in. Like, I am not I'm not an online business coach. I'm not an OBM, a coach, a consultant, a make 10K in 10 months type of like, audience person. And so when people were asking me questions like, what's your lead magnet? What's your this? I'm like, what do you, huh? What's your funnel? I'm like, are we taking shots? What are we doing? I'm so confused. So we've definitely come a long way where it's like, okay, lead magnet, I want to grow my audience, and funnel. Oh, well, how do I get people? I'm like, I don't know, Karanda. They call me, they return my phone call, and we sign a contract. So it was
Yeah,
nice to
so it
kind
was
of
a
have those systems in place.
yeah, it was like going into the deep end. And I did you ever or did you I think maybe probably your team members were more likely to because we set up a little vault and we set up a little it's like education area just for insourced folks because there is a lot like especially if you're coming from a brick and mortar in person kind of thing, like there is a ton to learn. And so we set up a little vault. It's not a course, but it is the place where you can go and say, okay, I need to understand, you've given us this tool. Let me go understand how it works, or let me go understand what a funnel is, or, things like that. So, was that helpful for you and your team? Probably your team would be more likely to access it.
Yes and no. I think, and the only reason is because there was just so much overwhelm. So it's
hmm
actually helpful now because my girl Gigi is now a client. And I think it's because seeing her start from scratch in terms of her work with you and being
hmm
able to just really get that actual onboarding of like, this, and this. I'm like, oh, I want that too. And so I started going back to the basics and watching the videos. And the whole time I'm like, well, this has been with me this whole time. And I've been floundering.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a lesson for both of us, right? Because I was trusting, like you were coming in and saying, hey, this is what I need, right? Which, we always do our own evaluation. That's why we have the marketing intensive. But in terms of where you were at in your business, I think we both felt like, yep, this is the right way to go. And then what we learned later on was like, actually, that boot camp foundation is critical. Like, if you are new to the whole marketing online thing, it gave you that base to be able to understand and work from. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I think another appreciation that I have is that you recognized early on that I'm not like the other businesses, that I have a very different business model, a very different audience. And while everyone else was trying to put me in their box, like, oh, you need a fancy landing page or you need this, like all the things that are so standard in the industry, I think you were like, actually, no, we need to figure out how to get you more referrals.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, it is different, and that's I love being able to have a framework that really does apply to everyone, right? Like you have to do marketing and there are certain parts about marketing that apply to everyone. And then inside of that, then you can get really specific and personal. And we're still, it's still a work in progress, like always. And this is one thing that I heard my friend Brianne say in one of her trainings, like marketing isn't a solvable problem. It's not like you figure it out and then it's done and then you let it run forever. Like it's always a matter of, testing and refining and seeing what's working and being able to track what's working. So that's why I'm so excited for your dashboards, which we're putting final touches on soon to really be able to visually see like, oh, this is how many leads we got, and this is where people are coming from. So there's so many of those things that we've put in place. Tell me about some of the changes that your business has gone through in the past. What it's been like a year and a half that we've been working together off and on, right?
Yeah, yeah. And, it's again, having that, you're probably the most consistent thing that has been our business in the last few years. I think that what the changes that have been really helpful are just having a marketing journey and getting clear on the journey. So it's not about your fancy landing page and let's use active campaign and let's put this software and let's put this together and patch this up. Like it starts very simple with how do you get clients? How do you attract clients? How do you keep clients? And those were the questions that we were asking ourselves all the time. So as our business evolved, we really thought, well, we want a solid partnership. So we revitalized our offer to make sure it wasn't just this patchwork of a workshop here, a workshop there. And then we got our lead magnet. Again, our initial lead magnet, though it was great, it was attracting teachers. And we love our teachers. However, they're not
Right.
the ones that make the decision. We need to attract our administrators, our leaders in doing that. And then finally, a webinar that we did. We had a webinar that was really successful, and it's like, well, instead of me always showing up, how do I just
Mm-hmm.
automate something that can get our vision and get our word, out there? So those are some of the systems, like just having a way for people, the right people, to
Mm-hmm.
find us, having resources for both the people that we serve and the people that pay us, and then finally just being able to consistently communicate with our audience in a way that's authentic and real.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember that conversation actually when I was like, "Tell me about this lead magnet." Like, well,
Yeah.
but who's paying the bills? Like, what's gonna attract them, right? Um, and that's where you came up with the quiz idea, which I love. So, can you talk about the quiz a little bit? Because I think that it's a really great solution.
Yes, so it's so interesting because again, shiny objects, right? Everyone was like, take a quiz. Which Sex in the City character are you? And all the things that I myself was like, oh, am I a Miranda? I don't know. Like, so I'm taking all these things and seeing what I go through, and I'm like, and then I started seeing more people put in more serious ones, like, what is your sales avatar? Oh, and I'm like, what is it? Let me know. Let me go through it. And then I thought, wow, what can our people go through as our leaders are figuring out how are they incorporating equity and justice centered pedagogy? Do they have a vision for science and STEM? Do they have diverse instructional materials that have representation of BIPOC individuals? So I started asking questions, and I'm like, so I can give out this paper quiz, which I did. I printed it out and handed it out to
Yes.
people. And I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. How do I make this digital? I'm digital now. I want to reach more people. And so we were
Mhm.
able to connect with Shonda to help us at least get the content, and then of course your team was able to systematize it to make it something that can go on autopilot.
Yeah, I love that you started with paper because I am constantly telling people to like map it out first. So I love that you literally were just like, here's a quiz, take the quiz, hand it to them on paper because all of those fancy tools you mentioned, they're there to automate what is already working. Like you have to have the process first and then you can digitize it, then you can start to automate it. So I love that. So, like in the time we've worked together, we've really kind of like shored up your foundation, right? So you have the right tools that are going to grow with you. We've helped you put process in place in terms of your email. Um, and like having a journey for people to go on, and we've helped to put in place some of the specifics and the digitizing of the quiz, and the webinar. So you're really at this point, and people that like it's been like over a year, right, of doing all these foundational things, and you're the second client. Like Adriana was the first where we really went on this journey of what we call like being in the basement, right? You're getting the scaffolding and you're laying foundation, and now you have the engine, right? You have the car, and now you can like start to drive it and say like, okay, where are we going to go? Who are we going to pick up along the way? And what's working, and when do we need more gas, and all of those kinds of things. So I want to point that out because a lot of people come to me and I'll ask them something like, well, when are you, wanting to like achieve these results? And they'll say something like, oh, it'd be great if, 6 or 9 months from now. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's how long it takes to like build the system, and you're going to do that work.
That was hard. That was hard to take in. I'm not gonna lie, because daughter of immigrant mentality, money mindset, scarcity, was just like calculating. I'm probably converting dollars to rupees and rupees to dollars, so like that number is even like escalating more. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can you do this in a month? Because that's what we have. And I do want to be honest, we would try to find shortcuts. We were like, all right, look, because I'm impatient and I'm like, let's just do this. And we would try to find shortcuts. We would try to find people that say, oh, I can do it like this. I'm like, okay, let's just try it. Let's just get it done and get it out there. And what do? We come back crawling with our tail between our legs, like, okay, so can you fix it?
I really appreciate you being honest about that because it's so like I try so hard to save people and I get um a little bit like territorial and protective because I'm just like I know we're expensive. Like it's an investment, you know, and we don't shy away from that. And it's because like, you know, trained by Chris, have really, really high standards, take the time to map things out, to do things right, to document things. And that takes time and you know, it takes resources. And so you have to be able to stay the course. And so thank I really appreciate you sharing that. But like it all has worked out in the end. And I really feel like you have like a good foundation. Um, if anybody who's watching live has questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. Um, I want to ask you, what are some of the ways that you feel supported, like as we're working together? Because I know it's overwhelming, and you get to come in and like learn a lot of stuff. Like, what are the some of the things that kind of helped you to navigate that?
I think it's just nice knowing that you and your team are just there, and there have been, and I know that you have your automations and your systems, and yet you deal with us like emailing at whatever email address, and you just direct us to the right way, and then all of a sudden a Facebook message pops up and you're like, all right, let's just put it into ClickUp. Like you, you deal with our, with the way that where we really do need to feel support. And then on top of, especially because we have so much on our plate when it comes to just delivering what we need to do. So it's just nice to know that when we finally do make the investment, we are supported. And then on top of that, being able to see the way that you validate other referrals. So if you're referring us to someone, you're like, make sure you go to this person, make sure you go to that person. That's really helpful too, because then we know, okay, it's not just shiny object anymore. It's actually looking in and finding out what we can do to make our marketing. And another thing I want to add is that there's so much of a technical piece that is oftentimes not addressed when it comes to marketing. And I love technical, I love all of that. But I think that when I see other marketers that are out there, they're just like, oh, and do these social media templates. And I'm just like, that there's so much more to this.
Yeah, and the thing I was just talking earlier to someone about, you know, like they're very consistent with social media, like they went viral and like all these things can happen on social. Like we love social, but when that happens, when you do go viral or when people are attracted to your message and they do want to go deeper, then it's like if your business is just a shallow pond, right? And there's nowhere for them to go. So that's really what we do is help you build out that path of like where can people go where they're going to start to get those right messages at the right time where it's not just you showing up all the time because you have to show up on stage, right? You have to show up at conferences, you have to show up, you know, like in those meetings to get those contracts finalized. Like that's where your genius lies. So how do we build the system to support nurturing the people along the way until they're ready to like make that move? So
And I love that you said that because, yes, now I can just focus on the conference. So every conference I go to, I don't have this piece of paper with a pen and random addresses on there. Like I have, a funnel. I know what a funnel is now. And I have, a way for people to connect after the conference and get into my email system. And then I have ways to, if someone says, hey, can you do this workshop? Like, actually, no, I don't do one-off workshops, but here's a webinar that you can check out that, a 1 hour, you can get all of the foundations that you need. So I feel like every time someone asks me for something, I'm like, well, here, check out, where are you on your equity odometer? Where do you stand? Let's ask these questions. And it's not just me doing the heavy lifting all the time for every single person I interact with.
yeah. For sure, for sure. All right. Well, this has been awesome. Is there anything else? So, for those of you out there who are watching this, and maybe you're a little further along in your business, and you're listening to Lena talk about, having systems, going out in the world, being able to confidently then direct people to the right places, right? Go here if you need this. Go here if you need that. Like, these are the systems that can also be set up in your business. So, if that's you and you are wondering how you can get some of this goodness, you can go to karandafixmymarketing.com, and that is the special application page where you can inquire about done for you services, and you can book a call with me or someone on the sales team to talk about, booking a marketing intensive. So the first step is really that marketing intensive. That's where we do a deep dive into all of your systems so that we know exactly what's going on with you right now and what we need to build to get you to your goals. So go to karandafixmymarketing.com if that's you. We would love to talk with you. And Lena, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to share about your journey. And it is a little herding cats, but I'm so happy with how far we've come and where you're at now. And I cannot wait to see like what these systems continue to do for you in the months and years to come. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. And if anyone wants to see an example of those systems, you can just check out our website. I can throw it in the chat, www.stem4real.org.
We're going to just put it in there right now. There we go. STEM4Real.org. Go check out, go take the quiz if you're in education and see where you're at. And see where you stand. All right. Bye, everyone.